And we are live. Hello, 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 Intuition of the Soul members. Oh my gosh, it's Kitty's birthday. Happy birthday, Kitty. And
Thank you for all the wishes, everyone. I really appreciate it. I feel blessed.
yes, yes. And we got about a minute. But we are here with Stormy Grace, and Kitty is just saying that this is one of her birthday presents, which it is, because I know that Stormy Grace is an idol for her. So we're so excited, though. We watch her all the time. And yeah.
Oh, you have your mug.
I have my mug. I have my
Yeah.
water, which is, all about life, and I have it in my Stormy Grace mug. So,
Yes, yes, and probably some of our viewers may watch you as well because we've been talking about you and stuff.
and
Oh yeah,
posting.
we're getting some
Yeah.
people. So, anyways, let's see. Well, it's just 8 o'clock, so um,
Oh, we have all kinds of people popping on.
we do. Hi, Sue. Hi, Teresa. Mary T. Lots more happy birthdays for you, Kitty.
Yes,
And
thank you.
welcome, Stormy. And
And,
yeah,
as
all excited.
we, I am always happy to talk about anything astrology, as they all know here. So I'm like, I can't even tell you. I already told her that I'm a little geeked, and I asked Amy to make sure I don't look like a maroon.
Like
Yeah.
drool and get that glazed look.
Well, so here's a real Taurus story, Stormy.
Oh
Um,
no, is it about me?
yeah.
Oh, jeez, Louise.
Well, so she gets a message, which was lovely, from my mom this morning, and she said, "Kitty will know it's special." And so my Taurus friend over there goes, "Oh, is it something she's going to eat?" Immediately. So, and I'm like,
Because the word she used was treat, and my
"Treat."
mind went to like,
Yes.
I don't know, brownie sundae or something. I mean, treat, she said. That's
Well,
where my mind went. But no, it wasn't anything
I'm
to
a
eat.
Scorpio. Stormy is the treat. It's the
Yes.
whole change and getting new information and stuff. But I laughed when she said, "I wondered if it was something you were going to eat." I'm like, "You're such a Taurus. You're just such a Taurus." So,
yes, I
yeah.
can just 1,000% understand that. I was having a little muffin before because I made cornbread with my carrots just before I came on here, and it was so funny. I had a little snack, and I was like, "This is like a Taurus security blanket." Before I
It
do something, I have a little
is.
snack.
You know what? I usually have a little snack right after because
Oh,
I eat dinner and stuff. So right after, I told Kitty that the other day, I always have to have a snack after we're on. I try to make sure it's healthy because it's later at night, but I have to have that snack. All right. Well, maybe we should get started. So, welcome, Stormy Grace. We are so excited to have you on. And we're going to start with maybe having you just tell a little bit about yourself and how you started this wonderful channel. You have how many followers do you have on your YouTube?
about 77,000 ish, somewhere in there right
Yes, it's
now.
amazing, amazing. All right,
It's
so I'll let you start talking
And,
about
and
yourself.
if you haven't had a chance, Stormy's YouTube channel is phenomenal. She has an amazing amount of content. She she'll give you for your sign. She'll give you
Mhm.
for everybody. It's just an amazing thing to follow all the time. So it
And on
is.
the banner, we have where you can go to get more information on that. But if you go to Stormy Grace on YouTube, she'll pop up. So,
Yeah,
anyway, without
pop right in
further
there. Yeah, good. Well, thanks again for having me and happy birthday and hello everybody. It is just nice to be here, and it's really funny because I think about my story today, in hindsight of everything, and it's like, wow, there really was, the universe had my back and was just kind of lushing me along right where I needed to be, despite what I thought at the time. And so, really everything started for me when I was really little. And I'd always been able to see spirit and just kind of sense, what was going on. And so the realm of the spirit never seemed foreign to me at all. It was more like, yeah, doesn't everybody do this, or see this? And I was the kid who they'd be like, the keys are lost. Where are they? And I'm like, oh, okay, Dad's got it. Like that was kind of how it worked for me. But I also came from a very Catholic family. My peoples are from Germany, so we were, yeah, European Catholic folk. And but my mom, whose birthday is obviously several years before mine, but it's the day after mine, we have always just been bonded, and she knew and she could see that I was interacting with the world much differently than some other people in my family and in our world were. And she is an incredible green thumb, by the way. So I think that through her own sense of magic, she knew right where I was and what I needed. And I was 6, and she took me to my first metaphysical fair, which, I just thought was the best. And I just, saw all the people doing the things, numerology, tarot, and the herbs and all of these things. And it was great, but I didn't have necessarily a resonance with them besides understanding what they were kind of doing. But this astrologer was working a chart, and I knew, I just knew. It was like I had recalled something I'd done 100 times watching her, and the interesting part is that, with the tarot and with these other things, I could sense the energy that was there and the flow that was connecting. But with astrology, I just knew it as this is true, which was a completely, and sometimes, so it's like, I think about, gosh, when people say, well, what's my purpose? I'm like, well, what's the one thing you do that when you do it, it's the truth, regardless of if you can explain it or not, so that is really how it started. And it's not like, from 6, I just jumped on the astrology wagon. That is 0% what happened. I just kind of went along and did some traditional academia, and I fell in love with everybody every 5 minutes. I was completely boy crazy. And it turns out to be important later in my life, because I'm actually a very good relationship astrologer. So, well, there's astrology and then there's experience, and they need to go hand in hand. So I ended up going along and doing life as I was doing it. And I worked at a radio station, which I always laugh because I always knew I was supposed to be a doctor, but I just didn't know what kind of doctor I was supposed to be. So in school, I at first tried to very traditionally go down that route. And every time I would end up in a language class, because I speak a whole bunch of languages, and I never understood why that was. But, at almost 40 now, I realized that every report card I had said excessive talking. Like, yeah, my life was like trying to tell on me from the beginning. It's like, let's go say things in lots of different languages. And I would end up in dance classes, because I realize I'm a lot more artsy. I have to do things that are in the flow. So I never became a medical doctor. And I was pushing a little bit for that to happen. And I think the universe just had enough of me. And I called into a radio show one day because they were talking about relationships. And the way that they were talking about it is, of course, for entertainment value, but it was very low vibration. And what they were talking about that I could hear is that they were going to respond to this man. And the way they were asking this woman to respond was going to hurt his heart. And I was like, not for that. And I wanted to call it and set them straight, just tell these people, and from there, honestly, I called in, I gave my response, and they asked me if I wanted a job. And I went on to be in radio for a decade. And yeah, I think the universe was like, oh my God, please stop trying to be a medical doctor. You're going to kill people. Go talk. Just go talk, child. This is exactly what we want you to do, which was great, because what that ended up looking like is, I tell people, when I fell into radio, I fell in love. It was like the boyfriend I never had, the love of my life, honestly. And I just could never resonate with why. And it didn't click to me until I was 35, but I'll get to that. So I did that. I ended up recording a whole bunch of commercials in a whole bunch of languages, because it turns out my voice is easy enough to switch languages and to switch age groups. And these people taught me about media and broadcasting and how to do that. Yeah. And, it was just what it was. And I was in love. And I walked into the radio station one day, not attempting to leave my job at all. And it was like I walked through that spiritual force field, like I walked right into it. And I was like, oh my God, I'm going to never come back here like this again. I'm leaving. And in my head, I'm being shown. And I was like, are you joking? I am going to go start an astrology practice and a YouTube channel. Like, I have 2 kids. I was in school at that time. The mortgage, I was like, the universe is clearly trying to get me to starve. And I'm a Taurus, so starvation and no money are like real big things to me. But at the same time, I also knew, I was like, this is it. And I just want to like pause there for a second to say that 5 years before that happened, I had just had a huge spiritual rearrangement, and I went to bed per se. But what happened is that I popped out of my space or my body into just this. It was like a chamber with a guide who I had seen 100 times. And I understood that this particular guardian, his job was just to help me identify what I had learned and what I hadn't. And so he would spin this wheel and a situation would present itself and I needed to respond. And if I was done with it, it would fall away. And if I wasn't, it would not, and it would stay on the wheel. And when I was done with that, I just remember the guardian telling me, okay, now you're going to start your life. And it's interesting because in astrology, things shift. They come to your recognition at every 5 years that what is going to happen at year 7 will shift the course of your life. And at year 5, I got to have that interaction, and I knew it to be true because when I woke up, there were lessons that weren't even a thought for me anymore because I was done with them. And 7 years, so just, I got to year 7 and Stormie Grace started. So, when I tell people that I have a business that is genuinely built on faith, it just is. I did not sit down and conceptualize starting this practice. I had a vision when I was 6 or 7 that I knew I would do something healing, but I hadn't given it much thought because I was working on a doctorate degree and here to do that and help people in business. And even business was about spiritual alignment for me. So I started Stormie Grace, and it took me, I was not a YouTuber at the time. I didn't know anything about it. I think I'd watched one Beyonce video and so every day, and I would also say, all of this time before that, I was like, oh my God, why would anybody own their own business? That's the stupidest thing you could do. So I was like, now that I own like several of my own businesses, I'm like, oh my God, why do you go to work? Like, you have to go, right? But I would go and I would watch a YouTube video and then I would apply what I learned. And that's what it was like for a year. And I would not let go of the radio station for a year. I mean, on the inside, I knew and I could feel that I was guaranteed a safety net, but I was also granted grace if I wasn't ready to let go yet. But the grace, while it was there, my insides were in a lot of pain. It was a really heavy year, and it was a lot to go through internally because I was just too afraid to let go, and then I let go. And Stormie Grace got started, and then I freaked out, you guys. I completely freaked out. I was like, oh my God, I better get a job. Because I could not understand that this was it, that I had stepped into what I was supposed to be doing, and this was it. So I went and I got a job, actually, and it was terrible. I mean, it was the best job ever, and I was terrible. My insides couldn't stand being there. And as it would happen, I took that job and filled in for another woman because she went to have a baby. And when she came back, she stepped into this like administrative position, like the receptionist up front. And it was so funny because she wanted her job so bad. And I really only wanted to work like 5 hours a week if I could ever get away with that. And we went into the manager's office and asked if we could switch. And they were like, are you serious? Like, are you really serious? And I was like, oh yeah, she can have it. Like, I just want to sit up front and hand people their snacks and answer the phone. And really, it's just because I just wanted to be close to Stormy Grace. I couldn't not do it, but I felt like I still needed that security. And the magic is that really got everything going is that the company itself was starting to downsize. So a week after we switched positions, they decided to get rid of that receptionist position. And they gave me, for switching with her, they gave me a severance package. And that severance package covered the first 6 months of expenses while I ran Stormy Grace.
Wow.
And
Wow.
that is, for me,
That's grace.
it's
That
great.
is grace.
It's great. And that's the thing, in my practice, I'm very big at helping people find the grace and see it. And also to understand that even if we think it looks like a hot mess, that's not necessarily us doing it wrong. That grace is still afforded to get us to the next step. So there it is. I did a whole bunch of astrology for free. I saw clients for free for like 6 months. And then I sat with this woman and gave her a 90-minute reading and we walked through everything. And she's like, gosh, you're a really good astrologer. And I was like, I am not an astrologer.
Oh,
She was so funny. We just sat there quiet for a minute. She's like, well, I just paid you for an astrology reading and you used astrology to do the reading. So I think, and that was it. 6 months later, I was like, oh my God, did anybody know I'm an astrologer? I just found out. So that's how it got started. And then my mentors kicked in. And Stephen Forrest, Kathy Rose, these people have been critical in me learning and growing. And now I'm just super in the community. So I feel like I have mentors absolutely everywhere. Yeah.
It's a wonderful story.
That's a great story because first of all, there's so many people out there who are at that same thing. They know they've got something to do and they want to jump into it, but there's all of those fears, all of those things, us included, where, where you just don't, you described it perfectly. I know I'm supposed to do this, but what the hell? How am I going to do this? And it's such a leap of faith. And it's not like you leap and it's all okay. You leap and you pull it back, and you leap and you pull it back.
That's right.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like I should have like buns of steel from all the like leaping and pulling it back at you. Oh my God. When people are like, oh, you have a beautiful shape. I'm like, oh, this spiritual fitness. That's why it's nice. If you like it, it's spiritual fitness. I assure you.
Yeah, I mean, I so understand too, because it is a hard thing. And when somebody gives you a label, I have a wound in Chiron in the second house. So mine is I'm never good enough anyway. So don't call me something, because then I might have to be responsible for it. And it's a hard thing, but it's also a tool. It keeps me humble. It keeps me going on. I'd be curious, where's your Chiron wound?
My Chiron is in Taurus, so I am genuinely concerned about valuable things, and I'm a Taurus anyways, so it is just genuinely at a core level a lifetime of self-worth and value. That's a big set of lessons, and to just amp it up a little bit, I've got a whole Libra, another Venus ruled sign, in a stellium, so like 4 planets in the second house. So it is like I am so in touch with Venus this lifetime and the worth lessons and the value lessons. But it's also, those are some of the people that I get to attract to me and work with. And I have this interesting configuration in my chart that I really love. And I think I've always loved, where I have this Venus that's in a more male or masculine energy. So she's very aggressive, like, I love you, come back to the lair, like that. And then I have this Mars that's in that same energy, but it's in a female energy or a feminine energy. And so Mars is like, okay, whatever you like. So, but they are interacting with each other. So it creates this really interesting dynamic for me in the energy of people, men and women. Like I buzz around people and see if they're balanced. And I didn't know that I did that. Right. And so when people lack a certain energy, I end up popping right into that space and we get to have that interaction. And it has been one of the neatest gifts that I have experienced over this last, 8 years. It's been really, really neat.
Wow.
That's very cool. I have a stellium in Scorpio with a packed 8th house and a packed 12th house in Scorpio. And yeah, I get it. I'm all about the change. I'm the opposite of you guys with the Taurus piece, but we're the continuum. And it is an interesting thing when you start to look at your own chart and you start working with people, when you start looking how your energies become part of the story you're telling them about themselves.
Absolutely. And I have a very mercurial chart, which is why I said, I got to tie this back. And so my primary placements are in words and having word magic. I can't be around people of other cultures because I will grab their accent so fast. I have people all the time. They're like, "Oh, are you from Texas?" They're like, "Oh, are you Nigerian? Oh, are you from London?" I'm like,
oh my gosh, that's hilarious.
Right. I'm just very mercurial, but in that as well, the ability to quickly identify patterns and find that has been a gift in this practice. And so, like you're saying, getting to see my own chart and seeing what it really has to offer. But then other times, realizing in my own chart that I'm like, oh, I have a client who has a lot of earth. I need to not buzz them to death or we'll never get anything done. Right, let's ground a little.
That reminds me of, I'm kind of getting off topic here, but it reminds me of a story about you grabbing onto their voices and doing that. Well, I was a teacher for like 30 years. We're both retired teachers and I taught special education. Well, sometimes I'm just really goofy. I have fun when I was teaching. So I would talk with an accent sometimes just to get their attention. And I did that one day and I was talking like in a French accent and they kept saying, "What are you doing?" I'm like, well, I was just having fun with them. Well, the next day, that night I got sick and I had to have a sub and it was this little old French lady. And they kept telling her, "Stop talking like that. We know you're not French." And she really was. And I thought, oh no, I did that to them. It was really hilarious. But anyways, so that reminded me of that story. But I know what you mean about taking on people's voices though.
I mean, my father was from the Netherlands. So I had, I could always hear that very Germanic. And I do the same thing. I go back to Michigan. I take on the Michigan twang. I go to the South and I'll start saying words. I married and lived in Maine and there are words I say, I can go right into a Maine accent. So it is kind of funny, but I really love what you said though about how you have to look at, God, let me think of my thought. I'm just so excited to talk about astrology, because it is so much about the energy. And when we tell people their stories, that's what I call myself as a storyteller.
Oh no, she doesn't. Don't let her fool you because she'll call herself barely an astrologer. And I always tell her, wait, what now? You're a storytelling astrologer. So anyway.
Beautiful.
But when we talk about, I tell people that what their story of their energy is, I call it their bus stop conversation and how that works with them. And it's really cool that you found these mentors and people to take you through because there's so many levels. Every time I turn around, there's something amazingly to learn or somebody else's perspective on that energy. And it is phenomenal because it's an organizational tool for people just to look at themselves and look at their own story and try to figure that piece out.
And that's a thing that's really important to me, right now is that realizing and pointing out while we're out there in the community that astrology is a technical skill. Intuition is a gift of all of us and we bring them together, but astrology itself is a technical skill and it is a practice. And I think it's interesting at this time to be talking about that. And we've got new ethical things coming out in astrology. It's an industry that's growing and changing like everywhere else. But, making sure that as we're studying and as we're practicing and things like that, that it is the astrology we're confirming with, not just the intuitive piece, because my intuition may know something, spot on, but I don't ever want to tell somebody this is coming from your astrology if it's my intuition. And I use them both in my consultation. So that's something, even as you're here, if you're studying or you feel called to it, or, whatever your situation is, remembering and pointing out that astrology is a technical skill. And so your astrologer needs to be able to demonstrate that. And we're an ungoverned field right now in the United States. Like, you don't have to be certified, you don't have to do anything like that. And there are plenty of phenomenal uncertified astrologers. But for me, that was something in this last year. I have all this Saturn happening though, where I was like, I have to certify, because I need to demonstrate to my fellows, my other professional practicing certified astrologers, that I know what I'm doing. And so when they send people this way, or as I'm out here, they know I'm safe and I'm ethical. And you know what I mean? That kind of placement. And that's something I really want for the world, which is so funny, because I was like, oh my God, look, I just walked out of the radio station like 8 years ago, started a YouTube situation. Now I'm like, I want good things for the world. So 8 years really does a lot to the human psyche, just so you know, friends.
Well, yeah, I think that's really very, very important, because, I've lived with it for 40 years, but the reading part of it is newer. And so I study with people. I read the books. I look at does this mean? I get information when I'm reading, but there is an ethical part for me to say, they're telling me, my guides are telling me this. Right. That's different. This is how it might look. Now, often, because I'm talking about their story, it's a piece of their story, And it's like anything that we do. We have a lot of people out there who are just trying to practice. We've talked a lot about the ethics of any of these practices. Everything from ethics in reading. Do you want this information? Would you like to hear it this way? To not saying, and arguing with people. There's any kind of reading there's a whole different piece about that, which is one of the reasons we started this IOTS, was to really find a safe space to let people try and learn and grow from all kinds of different.
I love that. It's beautiful. I mean, you've created, just this, it's a space that I feel like there have just been so many people who the gift was very quiet for a long time. And we hit about 2012 and people started going, oh, what's that? What is that? And then here we are in 2020 and they're like, okay, look, I might and we needed a place to like come whisper that out loud.
They go like this.
Yes. And it's like, yes, I know, bring it out. Let's you got to get in front of your tribe so that the ability to be helped and be and awaken it and develop it. Because I think there's nothing, I've had the feeling of having a gift be quiet, or something about me that felt like I was quieting it. So I love that you created this space for people to come into it and explore, and that it can be safe. And that's a lot of what the YouTube Academy was about, was putting quality astrology out there, that it is guided and it is in some kind of format to where if the best you can do right now is come and do free, you're not ready for classes, you can't afford them, whatever the situation is, there is something linear, in chronological order, where you can go to this, to this, to this, and know that the best of the best are out there giving you that information. So you're not having pieces from all these different channels. That doesn't mean that they're not good, but it's something consistent to start thinking about that is really, really quality, and never tells you that because your sun sign is this, because your moon sign is this, you are. We talk about the exploration of the craft. And so I love that about the YouTube Academy. So if you're not looking at the YouTube Academy, feel free to come over.
Yes, tell us some more about the YouTube Academy.
That's on my list, January. Like, I'm jumping in as much because there are just so many things.
Yeah.
It's like when people use astrology to predict this is what you should do. It's like no, 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 no. There, this is how the energies are talking to each other. How do you see it? And trying to
Hmm.
encourage people to understand that this is a tool and this is a structure,
Yeah.
and how we use it. So yes, tell us about the YouTube Academy because it's
Yeah.
pretty cool.
Yeah,
It
there's
is.
a lot of people out there that might not know about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it's super cool. We have this planet called Uranus, and when it comes around, it creates like massive change. It just like shakes up your whole life and your everything, a situation. And Uranus is in Taurus this year. And as it actually came in last year, I woke up and in 48 hours decided to launch a crowd-funded free university. And I was like, oh my God, this is that thing like at the radio station, and I knew I was going to do it. And so that is what I did. I got together with some other astrologers from around the globe, and I said, I want to put a free academy on YouTube. If it funds, if it's the will of the universe in this community and it funds, will you come teach with me? And I asked 12 teachers to come with me, and we will end this year with 52 who showed up.
Wow.
I want to teach, give me a class. And I just want to say this about our community too. They showed up and not only asked to join, but then asked me what I needed from them. They didn't show up saying, here's what I'll do for you. I
Yeah.
mean, it was just very, and so that's what we did. So starting from the history of astrology, moving through astronomy, there's 3 hours of astronomy for the astrologer that is available. And then we started at the basics. What is this chart? Where do you even go to get a free chart? What are the planets, the signs, the houses? What does this mean? We have covered a lot. It's getting the basics underneath people, and you can just come to the YouTube channel and watch. It's
Yes,
free.
I've
It
watched
is
some
out
of it. It's
there.
very cool. Yeah,
Yes. And we
it's very
will,
cool.
January 5th at 3:15 p.m., we will begin the Kickstarter for year 2. And
I say that again.
it's
January 5th.
January 5th at 3:15 p.m. Because I'm an
What
astrologer, we had to create a chart.
yeah, what time? Yeah, I got a
Now,
chart for the polar. What time zone?
yeah, I was just
That's
gonna
going to be
say.
Mountain Standard Time.
Okay, Mountain Standard Time. All right.
Yes. And it's
Uh,
very exciting. And we learned a lot in year 1 because I tell you, it was a 48-hour launch out there. And I am pretty good on my feet like that, which is pretty good. But I got to learn a lot. So as we campaign and get ready for year 2, we will advance content next year, but we'll also campaign to keep all of year 1 up so that if people didn't have a chance to go through it, or they have a chance to pick up wherever they need to, the more advanced learners can come and we'll start to cover more advanced topics. And the even more beautiful part about this that I feel like I really want to put out there is that it was very Uranian. It was different. It was innovative. It was scary because why would our community support something like this when they have schools that need to be teaching, and it's how people make their money and their living? And
Mhm.
I will tell you, I am a good business person. And so the thought on the back of this was, I actually don't think this will harm our schools at all. I think you're going to get more students from it. And that has turned out to be the truth. I've allowed space for every teacher. If you're teaching for me, come promote your brand, come promote your classes, make people open. Because what I realized is that, oh my God, I'm mercurial. I'm a networker. I can put people's mentors in front of them
Yeah.
and say, is this your teacher? It's like the bachelorette of astrology, you know?
I, yeah, I can't take. My heart is like, because that's how I feel. I contacted you and said, hey, please, I'm like, part of me was going, okay, this woman's got 77,000 people. Will she come to our small, group that wants to learn? And yet you said,
Mhm.
sure, I'll talk to you about it. That is what this whole evolution we're going through is about.
Yeah.
Is there is plenty for everyone
Yeah.
out there.
Yeah.
It,
Mhm.
there
Yeah.
just is. And bless you.
Yeah.
from someone who uses astrology, loves astrology, reads astrology, that you put
Lives and
this,
breathes astrology.
lives and breathes astrology, has for many years. And um, uh, because, first of all, what is so amazing about astrology is there's just so, as you know, because you have so many different people on and you eat, greets, and eats,
Oh, that's my favorite.
whether you're looking at
I'm a
north node
Taurus.
astrology, where you're looking at the angles, where you're looking at the math of the astrology, whether you're looking at
Mhm.
Chiron wounds, whether you're looking at relationships, synastry, composites, all of those different, there's just so much out there.
Yeah.
And what to have people that support, there's millions of people, and it's not the newspaper that says, okay, today my Scorpio says, well, it doesn't matter because my Sagittarius is already taken over and my moon over here in Leo is, in a crisis. And so
Yeah.
I'm very grateful for the Academy and for having found you purely by accident one day, going through, looking at astrology stuff and looking for references and things like that. So,
Mhm.
and I love 48 hours. 48 hours.
Yes, I heard someone else was doing it, and I was like, hey, what is this? Can you tell me about this? What is it? How do what's the deal? And he told me, and I was like, okay, let's go. And that is how it went. And I don't know, it's amazing. I do love a little bit of that electric energy, like when those spontaneous things
Yeah.
come, and truly putting Uranus in Taurus. If you're new to astrology, it's this idea essentially of awakening a mountain. It's like you erupt and you shake loose a mountain. And while that sounds really scary and we get earthquakes, what tends to happen is, and you may notice it in your own life, where are these things that have just shaken out gems, just pure golden, earthy, delicious minerals and gemstones that you didn't even know were there, and that has been the experience for absolutely all of us in some area. So, I really am celebratory that that happened because, again, I'm like everybody else out there. I've had more moments this year where it's like, okay, well, it's time for what's next. But it's like, oh my gosh, okay, how am I going to cross that bridge? But also
Mhm.
the beauty, I think, of the astrology at this point is that I want to help people first find the grace that, like, you're made exactly the way you're supposed to be. And there's a little map here to tell us. So
Mhm.
let's own kind of what you've got in your toolkit. Because I don't like when we assign words to ourselves like crazy. I don't like that. I'm like, you might not be. That might actually be exactly how you are supposed to be. But your best friend over there is supposed to, present differently. So I like to give people the grace within themselves first so that afterwards they can find their free and their flow and their movement in the world. And that is the position where we stop panicking about what to do next and let it happen. Because I don't think we're supposed to be making anything happen. I think we're supposed to be letting it happen. And wouldn't that be great if the human experience was just that easy? But it's like, okay, well, there's some steps. Let me.
Well, we have coming out of the Piscean age where we had all these great teachers come and say, "Don't suffer," and yet we didn't get that lesson. Like somehow we missed the part of that's the lower vibration, folks. We're working. We came so you don't have to do it, and I'm very excited about the fact that the North Node is moving into Taurus,
Oh,
and
yeah.
what that's going to be for this next collective energy that's out there. And being a Scorpio, I look at Uranus or Uranus, if you want to giggle, and
I
I
do.
that's her. I always say, or if you like Amy, you'll giggle at the word
I'm
Uranus.
5.
Yeah, she's
I'm 5.
good. She's 5 year old,
I'm 5.
um, and is the awakener because that Scorpio looks at it. Oh, it's an awakener, and it's only our Western civilization that
Yeah.
thinks that chaos is a bad thing. All these other meditate with it, call in that energy, whatever. It's our Western civilization that wants to make it be orderly and,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, and it's interesting because I feel like, just looking around outside watching even things on social media, I'm like, there's this real bridge that Uranus has also created between the east and the west in a way that I don't think that it hasn't been able to in a very long time. And now we have space to do some reconditioning and revaluing, and that's a lot of what Taurus and Scorpio are going to do for us as well. In our scorpionic placements, because it'll be south node time, there will be times that things that it's time for them to die off. It is time for them to die off so that something else can live. And it will be time on the Taurus side for us to figure out the new values that will govern our lives. So whether we're looking at that globally, and I'm a mundane astrologer as well, so I do global events besides just looking at people. So, oh my gosh, I get to run around with some of the coolest people on the planet, and we look at what's happening this week in China. Like, what? But we get to each make these changes in our lives. And the great resignation has been very telltale for what the Taurus Scorpio node axes will do. People have a different value of how they're willing to make money, and some ideas of you should just be at this job until you die and like it is dying off. There's just some other things.
The fact we can't find people to work because they have moved on, and we are looking at the population. This is going to be an interesting time because in this last, what was supposed to take 5 years, then 5 more years of people coming on, people have just changed. The door's changed. They're letting it go, and it's going to be a big shift. It's just a big shift, and it is great to have places to go where people are like-minded. They may not talk in the same way, but that they're connecting and going, we are looking at the world 200 years from now. What is the society we want to be? What is my part that I want to help and support? And so, so doing things like your academy, bless you, seriously. We so get that. We have
just your YouTube channel too, because I go there every week just to see what's going on for the week. And then, like you said, you do like a general, like for everyone, and then you break it down to the different signs. And that's just a really valuable, great thing to go to. So if you haven't, went to Stormie's YouTube channel and subscribed, you really need to, because you always have some great things. I love your eat and greets. Those are so much fun because you have interesting people on there too, really cool, interesting things. But I have a question for you. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So next year, because just tell us a little bit, what's the energy looking like for next year? Even just the start of it.
No, I think it's a good question. If anybody else has questions too, I'm happy to answer some questions while I'm here. So if you're thinking of things out there, feel free to ask me. I mean, if you guys will let me answer questions.
Oh, absolutely. That's what you usually break into that,
Yeah, usually we use the last 10 or 15 minutes, so we're coming right up on it.
Okay, yeah, good. All right, brilliant. So 2022's energy is really like, let's back up for just 1 second to 2020 where, kind of the bottom fell out right on time. And all of it is right on time. I want to be clear about that according to the astrology. So the bottom kind of fell out. 2021, we needed to get together and go, okay, all right, what am I going to do next? Or what's the vision of what's resetting even in our societies and on our insides? Because as the bottom fell out, we were forced to go home in many different ways and look at what that reset needed to be and to clean it up, to genuinely clean it up, and then learn new ways of being in the world, begin to shed some old ideas. So as we move into 2022, first of all, by the grace of the universe, we actually come into 2022 in 2 retrogrades. Venus will be retrograde and then Mercury will take a pretty quick retrograde. And that's a good news for us because it will slow the energy just a little bit. Now in astrology, in Western astrology, we go from March to March. That's our year. So we're not at the end of our year yet, but we are. What happens out in the world is that our worlds get busy. It's taxes. It's after the holidays, right? So there's this like, oh my God, I made it past January 1st kind of energy. So we're gifted as we come into 2022 on a slowdown to be like, hold on, breathe, walk slow, and let's come into 2022, which I think is absolutely a brilliant gift for us, because we will be required in 2022 to put into shape what we realized in 2021. You know, it was kind of like the fall and the realization. And then in 2021, it's like, okay, that really happened. And now what will we begin to move forward to next? And 2022 will put things into practice. And that's going to be a big, big, big theme as we work at those energies. But right after we get past January and we move to February, things will speed up. So you can know out there, if you feel like your energies are they're sped up right now, to be clear too, until about December 19th, and then we'll go and kind of slow down a little bit. But we'll get to February and things will really speed up, because we need to evolve. We need to come forward now with the tech. We need to start really having the conversation of new money out in the world. And all of these are symbolic of the insides as well, right? What's my new attitude towards money? What is my new attitude towards my self-esteem? What's the greater intelligence that has come to my table that I learned over this last year? So these will all be lessons. And I think it's important to point out that February timeframe just in this first beginning of the year, because in March, then energetically we will reset. Right. So we need to know that we're going to speed up just after January and come into that kind of major shift. And then in March, we reset. So it's just kind of important, I think, to put that out there right away and allow the honesty of our mindsets to change and start to reveal themselves in external ways. But also, you know, not everybody's going to be a millionaire in this lifetime. And there's a lot online talking about, oh, you know, come and do digital marketing, doing digital design, do this, do this, do this, do this, do this. You are in absolutely no way pushed to force yourself into a mold that your mindset doesn't fit yet. And I feel like I want to stress that, because everybody is evolving into the next thing that our societies and our worlds and our homes will be. And it is not all at the same pace. So if today you are not convinced of the need to do things differently, be where you're at and celebrate that. If something in your life needs to be different, the universe is quite efficient.
Yes.
Uncomfortable. Right. Yes. Like the universe will get you good and uncomfortable.
Trust the timing.
Yes.
Yes.
Trust
Yes.
the timing, trust the vibration, you know, and if you are with it and you're like, Stormie, I'm loving this energy, living my best life, come on, right? Because we can't all be lifeguards on duty at the same time. Some of us have to get out there in the pool and some of us are watching the deck. You know?
I love that.
So, like, wherever you're at, I would say energetically, first of all, find where you're at. Are you centered in some way? Because still some rules and some governings I do think apply. What the outside world is doing does not govern what you're doing, right? Like we are each still responsible for the choices that we make. And, you know, when I lie, it's never about the other person, it's about me, right?
Mm.
These are things that I do think this last couple of years has put us in great accountability for ourselves. But if you don't know where you're at, it's a little bit harder. So these grounding practices, I think, are really important coming into 2022. Jupiter is going to be, he's our benefic planet. We love Jupiter. It's big. He's bringing the gifts. He's very nice, but he also brings wisdom, and you get wisdom through experience. Jupiter is going to travel through Pisces, so it's very, very comfortable. And we've got an aspect in the sky, February 17th, where Jupiter and Neptune, or Jupiter and Uranus, will come together. And I want to put everybody on notice out there. This is a phenomenal energy on or around this day. Look, what are the easy connections or opportunities or like lightning bolt moments that come to you where you're like, oh my God, I've never thought of it like that. Mm-hmm. What that day is for you is a gift. Take it. It is positive change. right? February 17th. And then April 12th, we'll have Jupiter and Neptune, who are both rulers of Pisces, coming together in a conjunction. And this is the great hope for humanity energy. Anything's possible under this. The changes we've been internally making, the spiritual shifts, the physical shifts, just all of it, as they come together, we are able to form a different philosophy on the stage of our lives and of the world. I mean, Neptune and Jupiter are outer planets, so they really do govern a lot of society. And we can do all of the internal change we'd like to, but we also have to be able to fit into the communities and societies out there. So it's one of these timings where I think the universe makes space for what's next. It's like, cool, drop it in here. So these are some exceptional days as we go through next year. Now, vibrations are vibrations. They are what they are. And Jupiter and Neptune comfortably in Pisces, we do still have to look at what are going to be the pieces of our world or ourselves that are not seen to the naked eye, that will expand and explode with a need for treatment, whether that be we've got mental things going on, we've got spiritual inconsistencies, we've got illness, right? These things can present just as easily under this, and they're not wrong. They will be the things that present so that we can practice universal compassion with ourselves and with others. And it's really important that we be able to do that. So trust your intuition 2022. If we're not done with 21 yet, so if you're not feeling grounded a little, because 2022, I really think that intuition is a lot of the name of the game out there.
Awesome.
Very
I
cool.
love that.
It's very exciting. It's exciting where things are moving. It's exciting. We talk about often in our group. It doesn't be the observer, watch what other people are doing, but step back and figure out what you need to do, exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And that's a lovely heads up for, because we're holding that space, and whatever energy is going out there, we can either magnify it or we can hold and create the world we want. We will see the world we want to see if we're use that discernment. So
Yeah.
I love the heads up.
I do too.
It's
I
really,
do too. I
it's,
love it.
I love to hear everyone else's perceptions and perspectives, because then we all get our own information that we add to it. It's amazing.
Yeah. It's a big year next year. It's, the United States is going to have its Pluto return, and that's a very big deal for us here. And that is not always calm and pretty. It certainly wasn't the first time we had it. We had
No, it was a
we
Revolutionary
revolted.
War. Yeah, it was a
Yeah.
Revolutionary War. Yeah.
And we can see that out there. So I never want to use astrology to make light of how much Pluto is a planet of death. It just is. And so people, places, and things will die off next year because they have to within the United States, but also within ourselves. But we still get to step into actually walking our talk next year. Is there genuine universal compassion in our hearts, and what does that look like? Are we putting the oxygen mask on first, and then we can go forward with what's next? So all of that, I think, is I think this is the times that history books are made up. And who are you going to be in your community, in that history book?
Well, and
Exactly.
I follow Pam Gregory also. She
Gosh.
isn't
That's
she?
my
Yeah.
astrology girl crush.
Well, okay, so I'll tell you about that later. But yeah, and she brings. There's a geologist now that I started to follow, besides Nassim Haraim, who talks about this 12,000 year cycle of light that we've not had when these planets have been in this position, and that's the galactic piece we don't know about.
Yep.
And we don't know what that piece is, and I know we were looking at 2020, and astrologers didn't quite know what that was going to look like, what was that going to mean. And as a person who has both Jupiter and Saturn in Capricorn in her first house, it was like, oh, I know what that is, kind of feeling like.
Right.
And so I'm very curious about this next evolution with Pluto, and
Yeah.
it's going to be very interesting for the United States.
Yeah, and
Are we going to our roots? Are we going to really look at what our Constitution was? What was what is this
mhm,
going to mean for Americans? You know,
yeah, it's going to be a very big time. And you know, when things happen to the United States, things happen around the world, so it's kind of a deal where, yeah, we're all going to definitely be involved for sure. But, having a deep breath, I think using astrology, getting to have that deep breath to say everything is actually happening on time and perfectly, despite what I think. And I am just responsible for my peace.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of freedom. What would it be like if just everything was in perfect order and I knew it? That I think is freedom for all of us. So, yeah.
Yeah. So Teresa wants to know a little bit more about astrology for the world. Now, is there some stuff on your YouTube Academy that she can go watch
There
or I'm
will
not
be
sure.
next year because that was a little bit more advanced. But
Oh, okay.
you're talking about, I believe, what you're asking me is about mundane astrology. And that is where we take astrology out of the lens of just the person and that soul and looking at it through that lens. But we go and we find creation dates or natal charts for countries, cities, communities, and it becomes very much so the societal astrology. And we get to look at that. And if we were talking about how astrologers were talking about 2020 and that was coming. And if you look on YouTube, there are astrologers who've been talking about it since 2014. And every year it was like coming, coming, coming. That's mundane astrology, where
Okay.
we were looking at what is happening in the world and what are the patterns that we've seen, globally that come under that. So it's the same practice of astrology, but some of the placements and some of the energies, we work with them differently to look at trends that are coming. And that's one of my favorite things actually to do with astrology is look at financial trends and economic trends. See, I'm such a Taurus. I'm like, look, is the food in the money?
Yes.
yeah, looking at the value, looking at that whole
Yes.
yeah,
Financial.
because that's an area I know very little about. That's why I follow Pam. I follow you. I looked that up because that's something I would love in the YouTube Academy to get some more information on
Oh,
because it
yeah.
does impact all of us. So
It
But
will
it's a little more advanced, it sounds like, I
it
can
is.
just
Yeah, it is. But then also to this year, this year, 2021 was the first year that I did teaching intro to mundane. And that's still in some of the schools where you'll see them. There are like weekend workshops or things like that, and you can definitely join those. But throughout 2022, I'll continue teaching that. And there's a whole tribe of us that will be teaching that as well. So those opportunities to learn that too and get a little bit more specified, even if you're new,
oh,
mhm.
will be available this
all right.
next year.
Well, there you go,
I
Teresa. That sounds like good stuff.
it does it's absolutely amazing. Stormy,
She said
you
mundane is not so mundane.
mundane, right?
Which,
Yeah.
let me tell you, if you think mundane astrology is cool, Teresa and everyone else, horary astrology is the coolest thing. That is literally the astrology where you say, my whatever is lost, where is it? An astrologer will go cast a chart and tell you where it's at. I mean, it's the neatest thing. And my
What
friend,
is it called again?
horary.
Horary.
Yes, and my friend Wade Caves, he's like my soulmate, I think, honestly. He's so funny. He's the one where I'm like, oh my gosh, or Gemini Brett. I'm like, look, I lost the thing. Can you tell me where it's at? And within like 7 minutes, they're like, oh yeah, your husband's got it. Go ask him. I'm like, no, no, no. Look, I already asked him. He doesn't know where anything's at, right? And they're like, no, go see if they're in his pockets. Every time.
Oh, that's very cool.
It is
I
the
love that.
coolest thing. So if you're at all fascinated by that, check out horary
How
astrology.
do you spell that?
Horary.
Just like it sounds.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
That's very cool.
Wow,
I would
that
have loved
sounds
that
really
one,
cool. I had to write
especially
that down.
when my kids were little. That would have been something
Oh my gosh.
to have for a tool,
Yeah, we've got that, and there's astrocartography and astrolocation where we can look at your chart and see where in the world you have strong lines for making money, or you'll go here and have stronger family relationships and things like that. There are so many branches. There's Vedic, which is a whole other branch, and that can take you in a whole direction itself, but there are just so many branches. I think of astrology a lot like medicine. Everybody's got the basics. So somebody in here knows CPR, right? But there's many different ways that we go out and we apply this thing. And it's really very cool. And we specialize. Everybody does not do everything. Alex Trenoweth, she specializes in our teenagers and our children, along with Joyce Levine. So we kind of know where to filter people. We've got people who only do relationship astrology or only do dark night of the soul or eighth house astrology.
I can't even read my chart. I didn't even know this other stuff even existed.
I mean, I knew a lot of it existed, but actually, honestly, watching your thing and different people you've brought on, I'm like, I didn't even think about that. I now have a library of books from Chiron on, things that people just specialize in, and it's like, wow, this is, it's absolutely fascinating. Well, it's 8:59. And we always make a commitment for an hour. And if you'll just stay on a little bit, Stormie will want to check in. But we want to thank you so much. One of the best presents I've ever had, honestly. I'm absolutely.
Now we're going to go off camera and have a snack. Let's do it.
Well, you two are. I won't. But it was absolutely amazing. Again, you can reach out to our YouTube channel. Or go to stormiegrace.com. We thank you as people who also want to keep things free, that you are.
Yes, thank you for your time.
About the advancement of all of us. And so we really thank you for your time and blessings on all the things you have done.
Yes, and you've got a lot of blessings. You have fabulous energy. They love that. So, everybody's been enjoying it a lot. So, again, exactly like Kitty said, thank you for your time and blessing us. And just see, I told you there's always little nuggets. I'm like, I never even knew half that stuff existed with astrology. So I always pull in things. But again, thank you so much. And this has been great.
All right. And from Intuition of the Soul, everybody, thank you.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.